So our next speaker is Kim Cofino. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk about my vision of the future of learning after having lived in Southeast Asia. So I've got a little bit of Southeast Asia in here, even though I might sometimes say just Asia. So there's my warning for you. I'm just going to ask you to take a quick minute and look at this picture. What do you see? What do you notice? What are you thinking about? This is actually a map of the Facebook connections. It came out about a year ago. When I look at that, I notice the whole world is kind of outlined there. So I'm going to tell you a little story about my life. I grew up in a really small town called Redding, Connecticut. It's a town of 8,000 people. And out the window at my parents' house, you would often see something like this. Then I moved to the University of Connecticut, where I went to university, also a very small town. Yeah, UConn. Out the window at UConn, you would often see something like this. So just a touch more exciting because there's more than one cow. And then after university, my husband and I moved to Munich, Germany, which although it's actually a city and it has a subway system and everything, it's still quite calm and peaceful and green, and this is kind of a typical Munich scene. And then 7 years ago, we moved to Asia. And here in Asia, we did quite a bit of traveling. Our first home in Asia was Kuala Lumpur, which you can see is exciting and vibrant and cosmopolitan and totally different from Munich and Yukon and Redding, Connecticut. And then we moved to Bangkok, Thailand, where I got the privilege of living right downtown in the middle of the chaos. That was actually my house. Actually right next to where the red shirt protesters took over the whole city. That's where we lived. That was fun. And then I moved here to Japan. I live in Yokohama. I work at Yokohama International School. And you guys know Tokyo, Yokohama, it's pretty exciting. It's pretty vibrant, right? Yes, it is. So moving from someplace like that to someplace like that could have you feel a little bit of this, right? But actually, living in Southeast Asia, I realized there's quite a lot of parallels to this exciting daily life in Southeast Asia that really relate to education and specifically technology and the future of learning, how we use technology. So I'm going to kind of tell you a couple stories about these different images and how I see the future of learning. First and foremost, everything in Southeast Asia is mobile. It feels like life is constantly in motion, whether it's a tuk-tuk or a songtao or a moped. People are constantly going places, right? So when I think about education, I think about the need for using portable computing devices, whether it's a laptop or a netbook or an iPad or an iPod, anything to get us learning anywhere, anytime, and not be limited by our devices. In North America, we have the 18-wheeler, right? We get as much as we need to the place that we need it just in case we might want it. But actually, in Southeast Asia, they kind of have this just-in-time mentality. Small networks of little vehicles taking places just in time. I think learning should be the same way. Students shouldn't be vessels to be filled with information just in case they might need it later, but actually they should be learning just in time when it's relevant to them. One thing that amazes me everywhere in Southeast Asia, and I think rings true a little bit here in Japan too, is how adaptable people are. You might see a market not there at all one day, and the next day there's a whole market, and you're in the mall and you see your favorite shop, and the next day it's gone. If it's not working, they change. Sadly, our schools are a little slow to change. And everyone around our schools, yes, preaching to the choir here, and everyone around our schools, our parents and our board members, they kind of have this mentality, that's the way we've always done it. It worked for me, it'll work for my kid. But actually, times have changed. Things are really different from when we were kids. The way kids learn changed, what they need to learn changed, what they want to do with it has changed, so we need to change too. We need to find ways to adapt and be flexible and, like this floating market here, change with the times. We all know American fast food. We have a lot of fast food. But actually, nothing compares to fast food in Southeast Asia. It is amazing what can be achieved with just a wok and a flame on the side of the street in under a minute. Our education systems are kind of like creating a pot roast. It takes all day, it's slow, it's forever. Nobody wants to do anything for fear of taking a risk. Well, I think we should take more risks and be quick and adapt and be nimble and find new ways to solve the challenging problems that are facing our world today. I grew up kind of hearing this phrase, the customer is always right, but I must admit it pales in comparison to the service that you get in Southeast Asia and often here in Japan too. No matter what you ask for, anything at all can be found in Southeast Asia and they will get it for you. Here in Japan, if they have it, they'll run for it. We know what that's like. That's a pretty nice feeling, right? But our schools are so rigid, everything is structured according to the bell and the year you were born and the place that you live. There's not a lot of opportunity for personalized learning, and I believe learning should be personalized for each student based on their needs, no matter what it is, no matter where they are. Thank you. It's a great crowd. One of my favorite things is shopping. We have any shopping fans here in the audience? Thank you, ladies. And actually, I love bargaining. I love the idea that what I'm about to purchase, the value of that item is what the seller and the buyer agree upon. And it could be completely different for somebody else, right? And that's okay, because the value is what's important to me. Thanks. I think we need to have that same kind of policy in our schools. We need to look for the value where we can find it and give the value that people want. So looking at things like online learning or open courseware through MIT or massively open online courses, it's easy to see how an individualized learning plan created by the student, sourced from a variety of financially viable options, could be more enticing than our very rigid structure that we have today. All right, laughing and clapping. I don't know what to make of that. A nice thing for us shoppers in Southeast Asia is no matter what time of day, you can buy something. We have lovely night markets. We have all-night shopping sprees in the malls where everything's open from like midnight until 6 a.m. with a special sale and all-night food delivery. I like that idea that you can learn anytime. So I can shop anytime, and in schools I could learn anytime. We can take advantage of distance learning, of online learning, of different time zones to allow students and teachers, it can work for us too, to create the schedule we want, as opposed to this learning is only done during business hours that we kind of have going on right now. I have some really big fans. Sometimes it makes me chuckle when I go and visit Southeast Asia and I see all these jobs that in my culture are done by one person, like running a cash register. It takes like 3 people to run a cash register in Bangkok, which is fun to see, right? Because everything is collaborative in Southeast Asia. But really, our traditional structure of schools is that the students are in the room, the door is closed, the teacher is the source of the information and the audience for everything the student learns. I think we should build structures for schools that reward and encourage collaboration, working together, and building a community of learners. I think all over Asia we see a really nice blending of old and new. It really kind of amazes me how different cultures in this part of the world are able to take the new pieces they want while still retain their tradition. I think we see that a lot here in Japan. And I think that same thing about technology in schools. There's kind of this fear that technology is going to take over everything. Well, it doesn't have to be this all-encompassing yes or no kind of thing. We can blend our traditional methods of teaching and learning with new ways of teaching and learning to create the best of both worlds. When I moved to Asia, I kind of thought I would see, it's good and bad, right? I kind of thought everything would be completely different. It would be this like totally unbelievable different world I wouldn't even recognize. But actually, I'm amazed at how global things are and how they're able to blend the global and new ideas with their traditional cultures. I see I'm out of time, I'm sorry. Can I keep going?
Keep going.
Okay, quickly. Basically, generally, they're really flexible, and we need to look for this flexibility in our learning structures. So these are my ideas. Sorry, I got so excited because you guys are like cheering and clapping. I'm going to leave you with a final quote. This is from the Horizon Report. If you're interested in anything I said, please check out the Horizon Report. Increasingly, those who use technology in ways that expand their global connections are more likely to advance, while those who do not will find themselves on the sidelines. So it doesn't really matter if you're here or if you're here, because we're all connected. Thank you.